Hello, friends and enemies, heroes and villains. Welcome to Epic Realms presents a Game Masters Workshop, the TikTok edition, where all of our guests are famous on the TikTok. I'd like to welcome first, you might know him from Bardic Inspiration, Mr. Kurt Wise. How are you doing, Kurt?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
I appreciate you being here. Right next to him is known for her D&D dad jokes. Welcome, No Man. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm living, laughing, and loving.
Nice. Yes. The next person probably needs no introduction. We'll just wait for him to say hello. Hello, operator. How are you?
Wedge, hi. I would just like to state that when we first got into this, Anne was like, "Oh, and then it's just because I love puns. That's where I picked my name." And I didn't realize. No, man, and I just got that.
You
I
just got that.
I just got it.
No, the best part is that I've had people who I've known for like a year who've been like, and they've been one day, they'll be like, oh my God, is it I am no man? And then you'll just watch and it's like,
It's the
I love
dawning
that for you.
realization. That's amazing.
And of course, many of you here know Adam. He is just recently took over GMing our Wednesday night show. He is known on TikTok as the Blind GM. Very oftentimes, it's what's your phrase? What's your phrase? What's your phrase?
It's time for your question and stitchable, moment of the day.
While he's pulling the glasses
Yes.
down is the
Yes,
thing.
it's always stitchable moment for the
There
day.
we go. But everybody here has been game mastering. Everybody here is known for their contributions to content creation on TikTok when it comes to role playing and D&D. So I thought, wouldn't it be awesome to get them all together for a Game Masters workshop and follow the trend of the Game Masters workshop? We have about 4 questions that are kind of set up here. I'm sure we'll get off topic because that's what we do. There are 4 of us, which is the first for Game Master Workshop. Obviously, there are 4 windows there, which means it's been planned to have 4 at some point. And of course, you guys in the live stream can ask your own questions right here on Epic Realms. So, how about we get the shindig started, shall we? And we'll start off with Kurt. What is your most valuable piece of advice that you learned or were given to when you started becoming a new GM or a new player? Either way it works because, not everybody starts off and is like, I'm going to GM. Sometimes they're like, I just want to play. So what's a super valuable piece of advice that you still carry with to this day?
Sure. So, I think it's actually one of the most valuable pieces of advice I've got, not just for D&D and DMing, but for writing and being just a creative person in general. And that's that good artists borrow, great artists steal. And I'm not at all to advocate for art theft or anything like that. Just meaning that great artists or great DMs, in my opinion, won't shy away from taking inspiration from things. And it doesn't mean to directly copy something. It doesn't mean to just like take exactly what someone else is doing, but they're not afraid to take that inspiration and to personalize it and take it into themselves and create something new out of it. Another kind of a piece of advice that went hand in hand is that if you, I got this when I was in college, when I was studying playwriting, and there were 2 students who had 2 plays that were very, very similar when they were read. And the one student asked the teacher, should I dump this? Should I like write something new? Should I get rid of this? And she said, no, absolutely not. Because even though it seems like they're very familiar, they're very similar right now, once they're finished, once they're completed, the fact that it has come from yourself organically, naturally, and not the other person, they will be separate things. They will be different. And I think especially in a game of D&D, when you have so many people at the table collaborating on the story and contributing to it, that there's no possible way, even if you started off by taking Lord of the Rings and saying, okay, we have a ring that we need to go destroy, your story, just because of the fact that who your players are as people, who you are as a DM, is going to be different than Lord of the Rings, even if it starts off very, very similarly. So to not, if there's a piece of media or a story that you love that you're like, oh, this would make such a good D&D game, but like, I don't know if I should do that or not, go for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely go for it.
Van, what about you?
Oh, Sorry, can I just say something to what Kurt
Yeah.
said though?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's this podcast I love, and it's called Film Reroll, and the premise is they start a movie, like a well-known movie, with the exact premise of the movie, and they assign the characters but then they play it out as a tabletop role-playing game. And so you can fail and everything gets buck wild, right? And it's like exactly that. Like you can literally attempt to copy a movie word for word and you'll still end up playing a really cool, completely original game. Like you can try to play with your eyes, you'll never succeed.
That's
I
awesome.
love that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Right? It's GURPS too. So it's like
Oh,
my
okay.
first exposure to GURPS.
Yeah.
Because I'm
That's my
terrified
first
of
game.
GURPS.
It's a great game. It's great. Generic universal role playing system. Sorry.
Okay, but sorry, I just wanted to tell you that.
Yeah.
But advice. So one of the great pieces of advice I got when I started like running games, was to don't DM for the game, DM for the table. So I think a lot of new dungeon masters or any game masters get really nervous about doing a good enough job at playing D&D good enough and but what's a good game is different for every single table. It's different for every group of players. It's different. So this thing of stop trying to do justice to the game, stop trying to do justice to the lore and the history or whatever, and start just trying to do justice to the group of people who are sitting around the table. And you'll have way more fun and it's a lot less pressure.
Yeah. Definitely agree with that.
That is
Operator.
also really good advice.
Oh,
that is also
go
really
ahead.
good advice to combat the words are hard.
Words are
It's
hard.
also great advice to combat the Mercer effect.
Oh yeah,
The-
where people
the
like feel like
idea
they have
that
to be this incredible.
You have to be Matt
Right,
Mercer, yeah, and you're not.
Yeah, the idea is that you have to be this wonderfully polished, amazing, like acting, whatever, Matt Mercer. But Matt Mercer's been GMing since he was a kid, and he's legit a voice actor and a screen actor, and he has all this training, and now they have
A full
$11 million
production
a year
and a full production
a full
crew.
production company. Like, so that the advice that you just gave, if anybody ever asks me how do you combat the Mercer effect, I'm going to say exactly what you just said.
Well, and I think I'm okay. This is a confession. I've never actually seen Critical Role. Don't tell anybody. But I hear
No
great
judgment, no
things.
I've watched half an episode, so I'm almost right there with you.
Okay. But I think as much as you can be like, this is an incredible production. That might not be the most fun you would have out of all the tables you could play at. That might not be the most fun for any given player. Sometimes the most fun I've had is getting drunk with my friends at a picnic bench and playing Goat Crashers, which is an incredibly fun game.
I've played it.
It's so good, right? You're a bunch of goats trying to crash a party. That's the whole game. Okay.
You bring up an absolutely great point though. Like, would I love to play at the Critical Role table or the Dungeons Daddies table? Yes. But honestly, I played at Kurt's table while I was on deployment, and I had such a phenomenal time because it was people that I jived with.
Yeah.
To answer the question, advice to other GMs or particularly new GMs, just
Right.
do it. We've got a lot of like Canadian and Canadian adjacent people with us tonight, so I'll go ahead and pull a phrase from Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots that you never take. I was a player for a long time before I DM'd, and I was so terrified of like all the rules and everything else and all that knowledge and trying to come up with this story that wasn't railroading but at the same time led somewhere else. And honestly, just doing it, you're going to screw something up. I've been playing this game for over a decade, and I still screw things up. But people don't care. People don't remember that you had to flip back and check what a rule was. They remember that nat 20 that somebody got or that hilarious nat 1. They remember the good times. So don't get wrapped around the axles of trying to have an encyclopedic knowledge of the rules. Just have a good time with your friends. That's the part that everybody's going to remember.
Adam, what about you? Advice that you had early on that stuck with you forever.
See, all of that is really good advice. So leading into this, when I started GMing, I didn't have anybody to teach me how. I taught myself. And eventually, when I started branching out and playing with more people, the advice that I got, and I'm going to pretty it up a little bit, and then I'll tell you what was actually said. The advice that I got is the relationship between players and the GM shouldn't be adversarial. It should be collaborative. Now, the actual words that were said was, Adam, the players aren't your fucking enemies. Stop trying to kill them. And that was you or Matt that said it.
That
to
was
Nick.
me.
So,
That was me that told you.
so,
Okay. And that's
so
true.
that is the
It's
advice
so true,
that
though.
I have absolutely taken to heart and carried forward with me all of these years. And it was a learning curve. Absolutely, it was a learning curve. But you know, here it is 15 years later, and I feel that I'm a fairly accomplished GM, and I'm very comfortable with I am. So if anybody's starting out, the temptation is going to be it's you versus your players. Don't succumb to that temptation. You as the GM will have so much more fun if you tell a really interesting story with your players as opposed to actively trying to murder them.
So I wanna take a step onto that. Yeah, Anne, did you have something you wanted to?
I also want to take a step onto that, but I want to follow your step.
Okay, well, my step onto that is not only that, but we talked about on the last episode of the Game Masters workshop, making your players butt heads intentionally, like scripting it where the game is them versus them. Make sure you talk with them about it ahead of time, and make sure you kind of have an idea, because that can go horribly wrong. Especially because you have so many different factors of role playing, whether it's a person that says, I'm just playing my character, or I'm just, doing that, or that, whatever their reasons are, make sure you discuss it with them before you try and make a player versus player situation intentionally. Because it's a team effort, not just a thing. So, Anne, go ahead.
Okay, and I 100% agree with everything y'all are saying, and I think too that like we're all on TikTok, and I think a lot of us are part of APs, or at least consume APs. And I just want to be like, what you see, like, I don't know. I feel like there's like a trend on TikTok about like making jokes like as an evil DM, which I think are hilarious. But I don't think people understand like this isn't literal. It's not real. Like we don't actually, and same thing like with what you see in running actual plays and stuff. Like you don't see all the behind the scenes conversations we're having. Like I've run PvP on stream live, but there's like a side chat where people are doing like check-ins and things, but you don't see that as the audience.
You good? Yeah.
Yeah. So like I think sometimes like the way it's presented, because if you're just like consuming D&D media and then going and thinking that that's what your game with your friends offline is going to look like, it's like there's a whole element that isn't being presented to the public,
Right.
I think
there's the behind the scenes stuff that people just don't see.
Yeah.
For production value purposes.
Yeah, for streams.
100%. And I think ultimately the goal for the DM is to tell a story. And it's really hard to tell a story if you got a party full of dead adventurers. It's a teamwork game. It really, really is. Now, I've had players that like getting one over on the DM, so I'll fudge a roll and, oh no, you got me, because that's what they enjoy. But yeah, ultimately, it's a team evolution. The DM is on your side. He, she, they have a story they want to tell. And unless it's in, the celestial realm, I need you alive to tell it.
I think honestly that's a really good point, if I could piggyback off that for a second, because what I've noticed is in my favorite games, and I think it's a skill that a DM really like picks up on and you have to learn over time, it's when to lean into that adversarial DM mode for the fun of the game. It's not to kill the players, it's for the story, for the fun of the game, and learning when to back off of that adversarial DM mode. And that being able to switch it on and kind of adjust your level to really benefit the story is such a big part of it.
It's not Tomb of Horrors 24/7. Sometimes I need my beach episode.
And just and I think a hope for TTRPGs just said in chat, like talking about safety tools in session zeros too.
Mm.
I think a lot of the groundwork for that is done in session zero, or in terms of safety tools of like, because I'll tell my, like, for example, behind the scenes, I'll tell the players, so kids and animals have plot armor in my stories. They just do, but your characters don't know that. So behave as though your characters don't know, but you players do. So I can be like very like, imminent danger. What are you going to do? A bucket full of puppies. But like the players know that I'm not actually trying to like traumatize them.
All right, so I have a bucket full of puppies and a catapult that I'm gonna fire into the burning orphanage. Let's go.
Yeah, but like they know, right? I hope.
So
You
I've
hope.
I've s- I've seen it go around a couple of times, and Kurt actually used this when we did our one shot. It's a fillable PDF that he sent out to all the players before the game started, and it lists everything from kids getting hurt to earthquakes, and you
Mhm.
green light, yellow light, red light, the whole thing. And some of it seems a little bit redundant at first, but then you realize, okay, this is 100% the way to make the best game I can for my players. What I absolutely can't touch, or somebody's going to have a bad time, and where I can smudge a little bit.
And especially
Yeah.
if you don't know, if you like,
100%.
if you're playing for people
100%.
if the five of us played a game, like I don't know what everyone's triggers are,
Exactly.
and so
I-
to know that, that's a great idea, and I'm stealing that idea. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, and my question is, Kurt, would you be willing to make that PDF available not just to us, but to our illustrious viewers?
I will tell you a secret. If you Google RPG consent form, it is the very first thing that comes up. It is a PDF. Like Hello Operator said, it's fillable. I really enjoy it because it does get very specific. I believe it like differentiates between like different types of natural disasters and
Mhm.
different types of not just like romantic relationships, but like player on player, player on NPC, NPC on NPC. Like it gets very, very specific. And especially like, Nick, I know you said to like a group of people that doesn't know each other. I've talked about it a couple times on my TikTok channel, and I've heard stories of people being like, hey, I used this for the first time after you mentioned it, and we realized one of the players in our group had a trigger that they weren't comfortable sharing with the rest of the group, and the consent form gave them the vehicle to address that in a non-public way, because that can, even if you're playing with your friends, that can be an awkward conversation, and I don't think anyone should be necessarily forced to publicly disclose anything that they're not ready for yet.
Right.
But still having that anonymous option really I think helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're kind of on this subject already, so we're going to bump to our next question here. How do you create or foster involvement and teamwork within the group you are running? Because we were talking kind of about PvP and butting heads and stuff like that, but there's more to involvement and teamwork within a group than just not doing PvP or doing PvP cooperatively or whatever. So how do you create and foster that involvement, or get somebody to maybe open up more that's maybe a little less comfortable and being more involved? And I would love to start with you, if you wouldn't mind kicking that question off.
Oh, sorry. I was catching up. Okay, so how do you get people more involved? Are we talking about like people like players or people like player characters? Because I think it's different strategies you use.
You could whichever you prefer, but yeah.
Okay, I think I'm gonna talk. I'm just gonna open by starting with player characters.
Okay.
One thing I've started doing that I did not do for the first few campaigns I ran, and now I will do for every campaign, is start with everyone in the party knowing each other. And part of session zero is we come up with backstories of like, and this is something I pulled from other systems, but like what's the connection between these characters? What do they have in common? What do they care about? How have they been involved in each other's lives before, even if they're not close or anything? Just because I find that often at the beginning of a campaign there's so much distrust and between the player characters, because they're like, well, I'm an edgy rogue, so why would I be friends with this like boring paladin or whatever? And it's like, I'm bored. I want you to already have at least some sort of interpersonal stakes, even if it's negative. I just want there to already be some sort of interpersonal stakes other than just distance. So that's something I try to say, like, that's in the backstory. uh, Typically that works pretty well for my tables.
Right. And what about the players themselves?
For the players, I think a lot of it, of getting players involved, is DM prompts. Literally, as the DM, describing, like, whenever I do descriptions or things, I always describe like what you see. If one player does something, I'll describe what the rest of the party sees as it's happening and ask them, like, how do you feel about that? What do you do? Like, prompt people to react to each other. If it's not like naturally occurring. Although most my players have so many opinions about what everyone else is doing that's less of an issue.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, I know you work with a lot of new people. You play with younger people, kids.
I do. I do.
I'm
I
sure
play
you
with-
have
I
some
play with my
insights onto
kids and-
this.
I do. And I will say that my answer for getting kids involved, players involved versus adult players involved is usually very different. With kids, it's pretty easy. You set the stakes right away at the beginning. You set the stakes right away. It's not full on plot train, although it's kind of close sometimes. But you set the precedent right away. This is what you're trying to do, and this is what you will lose if you don't do it. And that is usually enough for a kid. And I run with my two kids who are both like my kid, my oldest just became a teenager, and my youngest is still in grade school. But I play with younger, I play with older, but like you set the stakes right away and you kind of lay it out right away. This is what you lose if you don't do the thing that you need to do. And by that point, they're bought in. It's super, like it's great, honestly. Because sometimes you do that with adults and they're like, I don't care. With adults, getting the players involved, Klingon pain sticks is a good motivator. But no, sorry.
I got it.
I've had a weird day, okay?
Operate, how about you? You got input on this subject?
Yeah, so I actually and it depends for me whether I'm running a one shot or if I'm running a campaign. So for a one shot, I try to make it very clear to my players in like the pre-session 0, like, hey, you have to have a reason to be in this party. If you're kind of running off on your own thing, the party is under no obligation to stick with you. So I'm reining you in, wrangling you a little bit. You all know this person. You all know, like, you all live in this town that's being overrun by goblins. Try to give a mistake in that. But if I'm playing a campaign, two things that I started doing a long time ago, and I fell in love with the way it worked. First off, at the beginning of every session, I have a little box. And in this little box are little strips of paper that say, you were at the tavern last night with player X. Tell us what they said. Or player B divulged a secret to you that they've never told anyone else. And I pass that around and everybody goes, and it becomes a canonical connection to the other characters. The other thing I do before every session is, instead of me giving the, hey, this is what happened last time, or relying on my note keeper, like, I'll shotgun somebody, hey, in your character's perspective, what happened last session? And it also inspires good role play.
I love that. It's a really good strategy. I'm stealing that.
Go ahead, please. Everything I do on TikTok, everything I do on here is meant to be stolen.
Open
Genius.
to everyone. Kurt, you got input on this, on opening up your players or player characters?
Yeah, first off, I'm going to steal all of these ideas because I love them all very much.
That's awesome.
Because specifically, like Anne, you were saying, having players know each other before the game starts. I don't know why that's never occurred to me before, because that is the biggest struggle I have as a DM. A lot of times is taking this party that doesn't really know each other and isn't really connected and trying to unify them somehow. And eventually it does happen just because you play with each other over time and stuff. But no, that's such a good idea. I'm taking that one. I think for me in game, it usually comes down to the villain or the villain of the week. There's very few things that'll really galvanize a party in a game like having a good villain to hate or to fight against. It's just something about that spite really makes people work as a team a lot better. Out of
Nothing
game
brings a party together like hate.
exactly. Out of the game, I again going back to session 0, one of the things that I ask, especially like if it's an ongoing campaign or a recurring game, is like, what kind of game do you want to run? What kind of things do you want to see in this game? So in for example, in Diceberg, the game I run on 5% chance here, all of my players said we really like having a puzzle that we can work on like as our real people, having something that we can really chew on while we're in combat or think on outside of characters.
Wait, where did you find players who like puzzles?
I got lucky
like,
into that one.
Are they single? Can I like
Single.
So that's I think a big part of it for me is in that session 0, literally asking your players, hey, what will involve you in this game more, and then incorporating those elements. You know, if your players all say, man, we really like mysteries, throw mysteries in there, throw clues for them to find and digest and really think on, and to that extent I will say for a puzzle or for a mystery, never be afraid as a DM to throw out the solution that you had come up with on your own if your players come up with a really good solution on their own.
Yes.
Don't be no, I know you think that coin is really important, but that coin's not important at all, and I don't care that we've spent the last half an hour looking at this coin because it's not important. That is the least climactic, like
right.
the most just like, oh, well, damn. Like, if the players are spending a lot of time looking at this coin and they think it's really important for whatever this puzzle or for whatever the mystery is going on, like just make it important.
Right.
Like incorporate it somehow, change it up on the fly.
How many times?
I like doing.
I was going to say, I'm like, I feel like there's at least 3 people on this call who are about to admit the same thing that they've done, which is make a puzzle that they don't know the solution to and just wait for the party to do something really cool and say that was it.
Oh, well done. Good. Great.
How many major story plot points have been driven?
So amazing.
How many major story plot points have been driven by ideas the character had? And then they go, man, I got it right. I can't believe I got the idea right and you had it planned all along. No.
My favorite is when I get credit to they're like, oh, I can't believe you had that was the solution all along. Genius writing. I'm like, oh, thanks.
I know. I'm fucking amazing.
It actually was that coin you picked up 3 sessions ago and just remembered was in your inventory and wouldn't stop looking at it. What an incredible coincidence.
Being a DM at the end of the day is less about being the greatest fantasy writer of all time and more about like those Mad Libs you used to do as a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Not too long ago, I actually did a puzzle kind of playing with this idea of that players occasionally hyper fixating on a thing, right? Like there's a chair in the room and suddenly they're like, oh my God, that chair, it's a mimic. It's suspicious. It's got something to do with what's going on. And you're sitting here going, no, it's a fucking chair. What you're looking
It's
for
a
is over
mimic
there.
now. You look at it too long. No, it's a mimic.
One mimic and suddenly everything's a mimic.
Schrodinger's mimic. Everything's a mimic until I decide otherwise.
I will say,
everything's a
Annie,
mimic until proven otherwise.
Annie, you'll absolutely love this one. I stole the idea from TikTok. They're
Perfect.
called Giggle mimics.
That's my TikTok.
Oh, I stole it from you. Hey, you would love this idea that you had. Let me tell you about what I just stole from you.
That's the best.
That might be when I started following you.
I'm so glad you like it.
Wow.
I think you broke her. I think you broke her.
I did. Well,
But
so
yes, I love giggle mimics.
it's great.
Googling
So I
mimics are-
basically I threw this room and it was full of random shit, right? Just random stuff, chests, bookshelves, random things. And on the door to the room in Draconic, it said, there are definitely no mimics in this room.
I have a player
4
that
hours later, they decided there were definitely no mimics in that room.
I've got a player that was just trying to absolutely pickpocket everybody, and I was getting done with it. So the last person he pickpocketed, he pulled a platinum coin out, and he hasn't spent it because the platinum coin's worth a lot. And then the last time he reached into his coin purse, he had more platinum coins, and then he had more. It's a coin mimic. It's eating his gold and spawning coin mimics.
Wait, though, that
Amazing.
is this an MLM? Like, I'm not sure. Is this?
It's eating his gold coins, spatting out. Yeah, 100%. It is it 100%. It's a
mimic
pyramid
MLM.
scheme
Yep.
of mimic coins,
I love it.
and that has not yet come home yet.
My favorite's using just a
Oh.
bag of devouring when he gets over when a rogue gets over stealing. I don't really do that. I always joke about it, but I don't really do that.
The other thing I would add, other than Klingon pain sticks, to getting the adult types involved, backstory, getting them to invest in the character's backstory. Now, I've run into a problem with this with my character, with some of my players. They don't feel comfortable coming up with backstory. They really struggle with it, which is actually the reason why I started doing the question and stitchable moments for the day, is to give them something to think about specifically pertaining to their character. So occasionally when somebody's like, I really don't know what to do, I'm like, here's these 17,000 TikToks that I've done. Answer some of these questions, and then you'll have a pretty good idea what this character is going to be.
I think one of my favorite things about DMing for new players specifically, or even players who've, I don't know, maybe haven't exposed to them much, is like really showing people how much freedom they have in this game and how far the yes and goes. Like how much you can just say my hometown is here and this is what it's like and here's what, and I'm like, yeah, hell yeah it is. And they're like, wait, I can just, I'm like, yeah, and this is the temple. I'm like, and this is the god. I'm like, cool, new god. All right, add him to the like. I feel like there's this moment in my players that I'll see, like especially during a campaign, where it'll be like this realization of how much freedom they have, because I think a lot of us get exposed to this genre through like video games or things like that, where you're a little confined to a certain, even like an open world video game, you can't just like add a new temple in Skyrim, or through like novels and fantasy novels, and then obviously there's a very strong lore. And I think the power of that I love about tabletop role playing games is like how open it can be, and I'm gonna slowly trick everyone into becoming a theater kid. I just one improv prompt at a time. I'm coming for you all.
I will say one of my absolute favorite ways of getting new players into it, preferably I have one new player in a table of other people. And generally I'll help them create their character, and I'll steer them towards the night background so I can role play their squire and give them a personal cheer squad.
Yes.
I kind of love that. Well, or even then, like going off of that, like the night background, or literally anything with a familiar or an animal companion, or anything, any kind of companion where you can kind of jump in as the DM and be like, the story is this way.
Please, for the love of God, the dungeon I wrote is over there. I made so many maps. Please go. Please. There's a pit behind you, and there's a thunderstorm next to you, and there's also, and now there's more pits. You're surrounded by pits. Go to the dungeon.
So with that dirty trick that we're talking about, DM tricks, I use the quantum troll a lot.
What's a quantum?
Where the quantum troll, I made this troll from scratch. I built all his stats. He has a backstory. He has hopes. He has dreams, and you need to kill him. Whether you go left or right, he is going to be down that path.
That's true. Yes, that is a valid option. If they're going to D and you need them to go to point A, Suddenly, everything that was at point A is now at point D.
Yep.
I remember one of the first games, like my friend ran for me around the table. He had this map that he showed, and there were 6 taverns in the town. And he'd named, like, they all had different names, and he's like, "Where do you want to go?" And we picked a tavern. And after the game, I was talking to him. I was like, "I can't believe like you wrote 6 taverns." He's like, "I didn't. I wrote one." And I was like,
Yeah.
"What?" But there were 6.
I respect that.
It's like, yeah, they were all the same tavern. I don't know what to tell you. The chance of you speaking to every NPC in that tavern were so low that even if you went to 2, I was gonna be fine. I was like, don't tell people that. Let them think there were actually 6 taverns. Makes it sound cooler,
Absolutely.
And
but
let's hope they're not watching.
yeah, players,
You
you heard
understand how
nothing.
long I did writing 6 taverns.
Yeah.
All right, so here's a question from
Mhm.
the audience, and it's from earlier on. Do you have a favorite independent tabletop role-playing game? And what is it? Go ahead, Kurt. We'll start you off.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
So I will say this. I unfortunately, just with my D&D journey, I played for a long time when I was in high school and when I was younger. Then I ended up taking like a big fat break for a number of years, and then I got back into it during the pandemic. Like I think a lot of people
Right.
got into D&D. So I don't have a ton of experience with those a lot of indie RPGs. Unfortunately, I would love to play more of them. There's one specifically. I'm trying to think of the name. Misspent Youth is one that a good friend of mine has talked a lot to me about, and it sounds very interesting. That's probably the one that I want to try the most right now. So I guess that I'll go with that as my answer.
Okay, sounds good. And I think I don't want to specify, but I think indie RPGs can be taken a lot of different ways, and I don't know if they mean specifically independent or just like a non Dungeons and Dragons Wizards of the Coast thing, or just something that's not super, backed by millions of dollars, and just a smaller, because some places they're
I
not
just imagine you'd be like,
independent,
"What's your favorite indie?" You're like, "I've heard Pathfinder is pretty good.
Yeah,
It's
right,
really
right.
obscure."
Oh, rude.
Oh,
That's just-
you were looking for a rival in this stream, and you have found one. Madam.
Kidding.
But I just wanted to
kidding.
specify, like, if you're not sure, obviously, if it's not like a single person developed it and put it out on Kickstarter or something, like, yeah, it could be something that's a little bit bigger, I'm sure. I don't really know exactly their personal definition when they're asking this question, but I just wanted to throw that out there. But go ahead, Adam, how about you? We're going to zigzag. I'm going to bounce around here so we're not following
Sounds like
the
a
same
plan.
order.
My favorite indie one-shot or con game system is Dread. By and far, Dread is just in terms of because that's the one you use a Jenga tower for,
Right.
and just in terms of like a suspense and tension mechanic, that is so intense. But it's hard to run an ongoing campaign with that rule set. The other issue that I run into in terms of like a more long-term thing, a lot of the indie games that I used to play have become a lot more mainstream. Like I'm thinking, Mutants and Masterminds. No, that's Green Ronin.
Yeah.
Like I just a bunch of them. The World of Darkness. No, that's a whole ass thing. So
They're still
like, I
cool.
mean, they're awesome. I love them.
Like
And,
at one point, yeah, they were. They were
Yeah,
pretty
well,
indie.
Exactly. Like when we kind of started, when I started playing World of Darkness, like it had kind of gone by the wayside for a while, and they just rebooted it, and like it was still kind of like it was just sold by White Wolf, given to somebody else, and it was kind of rebooting its whole brand and everything like that. And that's when I got into it. So I don't really have, I guess, a specific indie game for ongoing campaigns. I just know that there's like World of Darkness is great, Mutants and Masterminds is great, Pathfinder is great. So here's the thing, operator. We still, and Nick is guilty of this too. We still play first ed. We couldn't invest in second ed.
No. I've invested in second edition. I just haven't found anybody to play it. Pathfinder first edition is my favorite game to play.
Right. It's
Least
my
favorite to
jam.
DM. Least favorite to DM. You have to have a master's degree in accounting to DM that game.
Oh man, I got. Let me add that to my resume.
I play D&D as though it's powered by the apocalypse, and I know this about myself. I can't play Pathfinder, and not because it's not a great game, but because I'm dumb. And like
No, and that's completely fair. That's completely valid. We were playing a Pathfinder game. We ran it for 3 years. We got to level 13. Our witch had a character 3-ring binder, not a character
Yeah.
sheet.
yeah,
So
like
I have a theory about Pathfinder, particularly first ed, having to do with there are specific neurodivergencies that play very heavily into whether or not you will succeed or fail at playing Pathfinder. And they're kind of two sides, like they could be the same neurodivergencies, just two sides of the same coin. And it's a whole thing.
my little dyslexic ADHD ass is like, I don't know. Okay. I want you to, okay. Here's the thing. I came into D&D all wrong. I ran 5 campaigns before I purchased a player's handbook or read any of the rules. I just listened to the Adventure Zone podcast and I was like, how hard could it be?
Oh.
That was like,
No,
I am nothing if not audacity. I'm like, I don't know what conditions do. I'll just make it up.
I love it.
Which is, I think there, and I understand fully there are some people who would hate playing D with me, and I'm like, that is totally valid, actually. That is a very valid
Except for at the
perspective.
same time, right in the book, it says it's the GM's rules. These are just kind of guidelines. So I mean,
Yeah,
really,
Rule
if
Zero is the only one I read. I stopped reading that after that. I was like, got it, check, nailed it.
So Anne, what about other
Oh my god, thank you so much for asking. So, from the Powered by the Apocalypse system, I have 2 favorites. I have Monster of the Week, which is great. So this is based off of, it's very much like your Buffy, Supernatural, X-Files, where it is modern setting with like cool supernatural powers, but it has Scooby energy.
Nice.
And I ran a campaign on this with my friends, like offline, and they worked. It was the paranormal investigative temporary staffing, so they were temps who fought ghosts, and it was amazing. Great game, fantastic mechanics, and a lot of the D&D game prep things I've learned about how to prep a good campaign and session I learned from this book. Evil Hat, love it. It's not really indie, it's very well known, but I don't care. It's amazing. Slightly more indie, but also powered by the apocalypse, is Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
Yes.
Nice.
This is such a good game, even if you're not a thirsty sword lesbian, but especially if you're a thirsty sword lesbian. It has so many, especially the combat mechanics in this game are fantastic. It's really based off of making those cinematic fights. Like if you want to run a game that has the fight scene between Dread Pirate Roberts and Inigo Montoya, like that scene, this is the game to do that mechanically. Like it's so it's amazing, and there are mechanical things what happens if you kiss in combat. Like it's fantastic. It's such a good game. It's incredible. It's the perfect game. I don't know what to say.
I've heard of both of these, and I've never had a chance to play either of them. I thought Monster of the Week was like a Reddit group where they just came up with a new monster every week. I didn't know it was its own system until like 6 months ago.
But it is
and now I need it in my life.
It's that. Well, Monster of the Week is actually like it's like a genre of that informs the book, and it's
kind
just
of
like,
named after those 90s style like Buffy and
which is like
shows.
what I definitely grew up more in that genre, and like that genre more than the high fantasy genre. I love the high fantasy genre as well, but I'm definitely more Buffy than Lord of the Rings in my DNA. So if you are too, Monster of the Week, and also if you're gay, sorry, I mean, or if you're not, if you just want to learn about the game too, it's a really good game. I'm actually trying to employ a lot of these mechanics to allow people to flirt in combat more in D&D. So I'm,
Nice.
because I love it. It's great. It's fantastic. And other games. Okay, I got so many more. There's one I'm running actually on Monday as a world building game. It's called The Quiet Year, and this is a fantastic game. It's a map making game. So the way it works is either you're playing around the table where we literally have like a poster and everyone's drawing on it, or I play it when I'm playing online. I use like a collaborative sheet online that people can draw on. And then the whole premise is that there's a community that has recovered from some sort of disaster, and they have one quiet year to rebuild the community before another disaster hits. And then you play with a deck of cards, and each card represents a week. So 52 cards, 52 weeks, and you draw a card, and each card has a prompt. It says, something mysterious has been discovered beneath beneath the ground by a child. What is it?
Right.
And then it's a prompt, and then someone draws it on the map, and this story plays out, and it's absolutely incredible game. It is so much fun, and I use
love
it to write
this.
backstory for some of my D&D worlds. Because
Operator's
it's like,
looking for a pen and paper to write these
I-
down.
Yes,
tell.
100%. Huh.
yes,
You can always watch
Is that
the
what you
replay.
said it's called?
The Quiet Year.
Quiet
yeah.
Year, yeah.
It's so
I'm on a computer. I can use Notepad. The Quiet Year.
We're
Google
learning
me
so
later.
much.
We're learning. Okay, and then I got one more, and
Okay.
then I'll shut up and let other people speak. I promise. Okay, the other one I have is called Boy Problems. It's a reskin of the game Lasers and Feelings,
Lasers and
which is the
Feelings, yes.
world's best starter tabletop role-playing game because there's only one stat. There's only one stat that each player has, and it's how laser or feelings are you. That's it. But Boy Problems is the version, but it's all about Carly Rae Jepsen in space. It's a cyberpunk heist about Carly Rae Jepsen, and you all. And it's the best game, okay? It's the best fucking game.
Is
That's
there
all.
a connection that I don't understand between Carly Rae Jepsen and role-playing games? Because this is, I think, the second game that I've heard of that is
Blackheart?
based on. Yeah.
Yeah, Blackheart's an amazing game too. Okay, I don't want to get into it, but that's the one where you're in a Carly Rae Jepsen based cult, and it's like a gothic horror, and you're all cultists trying to summon the old god of Carly Rae. Listen. I don't know what to tell you, except that CRJ fans are rabid, but there is a thing between specific. Carly Rae has wielded a sword on numerous occasions, in ways that, like, someone threw a sword at her on stage once, and she like picked it up and was like very adept with a sword, and everyone's like, "Hey, what the fuck, Carly?" So we have a lot of questions about that, and also there's just the lore of Carly Rae Jepsen. There's also a thing because the whole premise of Boy Problems is that you're finding the like hidden archive of all the secret Carly Rae Jepsen songs, because she's one of these artists who makes like a bajillion songs for everyone that gets released. So there's like this archive does exist. There's like secret recordings of like hundreds and hundreds of songs that have never been released. So I think a lot of people just fantasize about stealing those.
Okay.
And like maybe there's also an AI and you're also cyberpunk bounty hunters, like whatever. That's just fun.
That's awesome.
That's just gravy at that point. I mean,
We're like, what the fuck's up with Carly Rae? I'm like, this isn't me defending Carly Rae Jepsen, but Carly Rae Jepsen's amazing.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, no, that's the new. I'm sorry. If you want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons on this podcast, it's actually now a Carly Rae Jepsen podcast.
Okay.
And I
see
want
her
to tell
poster in your
everyone to go.
background though, so I don't.
I'm slightly ashamed to say I just had to Google who Carly J is.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's
it's
fine.
First she
It's
says she
okay.
doesn't. She's not into Pathfinder. Now you say you don't know who Carly Rae is.
this
Yeah.
rivalry's
Where are my
getting
boxing
hot, guys.
gloves?
Started this feud already. Come to me.
Finally. I've always wanted a nemesis.
Ah, okay,
All
we
right.
do understand now that the two of you have to carry this over to TikTok, right? Like this now has to be a thing.
I don't think I'm very good at feuds, but I'll work on it.
Good. It just means I'll win.
Perfect.
Operator, any indie games on your behalf that you're a big fan
So
of or looking forward to?
I'm super mainstream. I play Pathfinder. I play D&D. I play Call of Cthulhu, but I do have my indie guilty pleasure, Sexy Battle Wizards. I love Sexy Battle Wizards so much. Give me what's this guy's name? I just pulled it up. Grant Howitt. So he does this entire thing of one-page RPGs, and all you need is like a D6 or a D10, and you create your character right there. It creates the story for you. It creates the villain for you. They take 2 to 3 hours to play out, and it's all improv. It's 100% improv, and I love it.
Love it.
so much. The last time I played, we did Sexy Battle Wizards, and I was like this Master Roshi inspired, like high school janitor teacher at like a wizard convention, trying to like sabotage the witches. It was amazing. It was so
Nice.
amazing. I loved it so much.
There's another one that's sexy hairdresser vampires, and your only two stats is no, your sexy vampire hairdressers. That's important because the two stats you have are how sexy vampire your action is or how hairdresser your action is, and those are the two. It's another Grant Howitt. It's another Grant Howitt.
So the one I gave you is like specifically kind of D&D, but like
Yeah.
there's one called Trashkin where you're all like possums and raccoons, and
Nice.
it's so great.
I need
Like
that in my life.
it's so good. It's so
I
good.
wanna
Just
say
Google
they played one of
one-page
these-
RPGs.
Honey
I
Heist.
want to say they.
Yes,
Honey,
I've done
thank
Honey
you.
Heist.
Yes,
I was just
they
wondering.
did one of those on Critical Role.
Yeah, it's how bear
one
or
of the
criminal you are.
offshoot-
You're a bunch of bears doing
Yeah.
crimes.
Yes.
Stats are you acting more bear
So
or
good.
The other one is Goat Crashers that I fucking love, where you're a
Mhm.
bunch of goats crashing a party, and your whole goal, like you get a goal assigned to you, and it's like your goal is to go and acquire champagne, and so your entire goal as a goat is to sneak into a party and drink champagne, and it's like your power is that you faint a lot. That's your. It's so good.
Wow.
Powers that you faint a lot.
I would like to put a
Wow.
shout out to a new game company that just kind of started up. It's a bunch of well-known guys that have put it together, but it's called Evil Genius Productions, and they're doing entire role-playing systems based on pop culture movies. So Pacific Rim RPG, Kong Skull Island RPG, Highlander RPG, Escape from New York, The Crow, Universal Soldier, Total Recall, Rambo, and they're making their own RPG for each of these.
Wow.
I think it just started, or I know they had a Kickstarter for them, but I'm super stoked to try some of those out. So they're all like things that I'm always like, man, I really want to play this. I guess I'm doing it in GURPS. I guess I'm doing it in Mutants and Masterminds. But now they're gonna have
Have
their
you
own
played
system.
GURPS?
Oh yeah, I started off with GURPS. That's how I started way back.
Really?
It was like GURPS 3rd edition or something. And we did Highlander. That was the big thing. It's like because it was the only place that you could transfer the Highlander abilities over and have it make sense and like get stuff and tell a Highlander type story.
Do you want to know? Do you want to tell people what GURPS is?
GURPS is the generic universal role playing system, which you can take and build anything you want, and it's based on 3 dice 6. And yeah, it's for those that don't know, we're going to actually have Steve Jackson on the podcast. He's going to be joining us on October 3rd, and we could probably talk a little bit more about GURPS October 3rd on our live stream podcast. So I wasn't going to mention it till later, till at the end where we do stuff, but we brought up
Spoilers.
we brought up GURPS. So yeah, yes, I love me some GURPS.
Well,
I haven't played
this
in
is going to
forever.
date Nick a little bit, but the story behind that is that he really started role playing during the height of the Satanic Panic, and his mom wouldn't let him play D&D,
True story.
so they played GURPS instead.
Aw, that's really.
Yep. And the thing is, the person that introduced me to GURPS was in a religious family where GURPS was evil, and they literally burned his entire collection 3 times. 3 times. And he literally had stacks. Like, he spent all his money on GURPS books, and yeah, they burnt them 3 times. He had to redo the collection. And then we all bought the book so that it didn't matter. So yeah, it's...
I had to hide my Magic the Gathering cards. I know. I know.
Had a very different. My dad was a DM in with 1st edition, and like I grew up playing Magic, at the park as a kid, and I'm like, this is the best. I've done a lot. I have a master's degree. My dad doesn't fucking care. He's like, you play Dungeons and Dragons. That's what matters.
Your birthright. Claim it.
I'm gonna go back. Chat just informed me, but that all of those games that I mentioned are one system, one game, and it's called Everyday Heroes. So, and then
Oh,
there are
cool.
movie concepts and stuff. So, thank you, Breckland, for the update info on that. It's really hard to track all of them because they ran them all the books separately. So I always just assumed that they were separate. So awesome. All right, guys, we're at about the 1 hour mark. We're going to take a quick break. Those of you who are here in the chat or in No Man's chat, If you have questions, if you have a conundrum, a role-playing thing, if you want information, if you're a player and you have player questions, these don't have to be Game Master questions. If you're like, I'm trepidatious about this, or I have a character, or I have whatever your problem or your question or your query is, hop over to my chat. Go ahead and ask the question, and we'll get it out there. We got a couple more pre-made questions, but we would love to hear your questions as well. So we're going to go to break. We'll be about 10-15 minutes, and we will be right back, so stick around.
Are you familiar with the term pantsing?
Yes.
People are outliners or pantsers. They write by the seat of their pants. So I had a vague idea of this novel I wanted to write in my own world. And I just sat down and started writing.
I mean, pantsing for some people means something completely different, but I know what you mean.
In the writing vernacular, nothing to do with actual pants.
When it first started, it was first edition, just an adventure. It was just an idea for an adventure. But as I was building the adventure, I realized I needed all this world lore and stuff to make the adventure work, right? And I couldn't set it in Galarian because at the time Galarian wasn't an open thing that I could play with, at least not in a third party sense, right? Doing it on my own. And as I started building up the world, I realized, hey, I've really got something here. And second edition was coming along as well. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to design it specifically to work, taking advantage of everything in second edition. But even then, second edition came out and I still wasn't ready to do anything with it. So, then the pandemic hit and we've all been sitting in our houses for 2 years. And eventually I was like, you know what? I need a way that allows me to get this out there in pieces and build it as people are engaging with it. That way they can take part in directing it and see it as it grows. So it's not just a campaign, it's an experience as well.
Shortly before Pathfinder 2nd Edition was announced, Green Ronin decided that they had done everything they wanted to do with Pathfinder, so they wrapped that up, and I left the company, and I moved to Indiana when I left Paizo, and I had a job lined up for a career plan lined up, and that didn't work out, and they needed a new person to be the Fantasy Age developer, and Fantasy Age evolved from Dragon Age, and they knew I had done some Dragon Age work, so they asked me, you've been a developer for us before, we know you know the game system, we plan for this the Fantasy Age had been tied to Freeport, and we're going to do something slightly different, but it's still going to need to be able to have that flavor, so we know you know the Freeport flavor, we know you know the core rule system, do you want to be the developer? And I love working for Green Ronin. They are not only one of my favorite game companies, they are comprised of many of my favorite people.
Some of you may know me from Angels. Hello, and we are back. Thank you for hanging out during the break. Hopefully you enjoyed some of those weird clips and fun clips and every one of the clips. And before we even get started, Anne's got a really good piece of advice for everyone.
That is universally applicable to every single person. So my advice is, as a dungeon master, one of the hardest things is getting the players to follow the plot and getting the players to listen when important things are happening. And there are lots of ways you can do this. You can try to tie it into backstories, you can give them narrative stakes, or you can do what I do, which is just introduce a new NPC with this voice. Just give an NPC this voice and now they're listening. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have even a reason for them being there. It's cheating, and I don't care. That's all. So there you go.
Wait, aren't you supposed to tell us what to do now? What are we supposed to do?
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good.
All right. So we do have some questions, guys. And for those that don't know, that just tuned in, this is the Game Masters Workshop TikTok edition, where we're here with all stars from TikTok. You'll see our moderator just posted in the chat all of their TikTok handles, so go ahead and follow them all and enjoy. So let's backtrack and let's see if let's see here. Let's backtrack to the break and see what kind of questions we got. What do you do when you're lacking
during break? There's go ahead.
What do you do? What do you do when you're lacking inspiration for TikTok or for games?
Panic.
Adam, go ahead. Start.
Cry.
All right.
This is
so that's fair. We're gonna start with games for me. So as Kurt said kind of early on, you draw inspiration from things, from stuff around you, and input things. So if you're out of ideas from your own, yawning void between your ears, I usually try to find a movie or a book that is thematically similar to what it is that I'm running, and I'll throw that on and see if anything hits. And sometimes I'll watch 2 or 3 of them in that genre just to kind of get the juices flowing, but it usually works. It usually happens. As far as TikToks are concerned, Panic is a good and viable option. One that I have employed readily, handily, and today, in point of fact. Sometimes just hitting record and praying something interesting comes out works. So I legitimately, some of my most well-performing videos on TikTok were literally me just hitting record and start talking. Some of my least well-performing videos are the same thing. But also,
and that's on TikTok.
and that's on TikTok. But realistically, and this is, I think, something that my fellow TikTokers can agree with. Honestly, having a niche, having a gimmick, having a thing that you can kind of go back to, if you have no other ideas for any other content. So, like, for me, it's the question and stitchable moment. For No Man, it's the D&D dad jokes. We've got, the dancing barb. We've got Hello Operator. Like, we've got, everybody here has something that they can kind of fall back on. If they don't have literally any other ideas for the day, they can do that. And like, for me, if with a question and stitchable moment, I literally just have to go to like a relationship advice website or podcast to come up with questions that you ask your date on your first date, and that I throw that out there as a question and stitchable moment.
And did you have a thought? It looked like you were gonna step in and mention something.
Oh, I just have hi TikTok. So with the whole D&D dad jokes is like what made my TikTok really like pop off to be the the critically acclaimed success you see before you now. But after like 50 jokes, you're like, damn, like I don't know if I got, like, I make a lot of puns, but I don't know. It's like there are definitely days where you're like, I don't have a joke for you today.
Right.
I'm so sorry. And I made a format, like the niche was based around having a very specific kind of content. And the truth of the matter is, I mentioned, I'm ADHD. My interests change all the time. And so sometimes all I care about is writing puns. But sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk about that anymore. I want to talk about something else. And it's absolutely terrifying because the internet can be so unforgiving. They're like, get back in your corner. Where's the joke? And I'm like, I just actually want to talk about this lore. And they're like, stop it. We hate this. Or it can be not. It can, you can hopefully become like a rounded person. But yeah, it can be, I think for me was I get really anxious because I do, the internet loves to shoehorn you into this thing. And the truth of the matter is, yeah, if you try to just stay in one corner sometimes it can be a well to draw in, but sometimes it can also feel very constricting and limiting, and it can feel like you're like stuck. And sometimes you just kind of have to throw caution to the wind and be like, well, I'm just doing something else. Please don't yell at me.
Kurt?
Like 100%. And I think we're all creators on TikTok, so I think there are some specific challenges to creating on that platform, especially, and like you were saying, the niche and the shoehorning in. I feel like TikTok as a platform does that very well. But then whenever you do try to do anything different, so something that's coming off the top of my head, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Katiosaurus, but
love her.
She's got 1.6 million followers. She had a video where she talked about D&D, and it got like 7,000 views, which, like, 7,000 views is still 7,000 views. But when you look at comparatively, just talking about something outside of her main niche shuts down all the views on that platform. Yeah. But to not focus on TikTok, I tend to notice that when I am lacking inspiration or lacking motivation to create, it's because I am either just tired and I need a break, or I am worrying too much on making it good. So for D&D in a game, honestly, do not underestimate the power of a down episode, of a downtime episode. Just to give yourself a break as a DM from being like, I got to do stakes and narrative and everything's got to be big and exciting. Just relax, let your players have fun, narrate the fun in between your players. It can be so refreshing for a game. And in TikTok, it's hard to do when you're a creator, but just making something, even if you know it's not good, even if you're the entire time looking at it like, I hate this is hot garbage, I don't want to be making this, but if you're in that, it sucks.
It feels so
You gotta feed the algorithm.
But you gotta
Do you ever feel like a
something that-
warlock trying to appease your patron sometimes? You're just like, feel like, oh, guys,
Subclass, I'll be
here's
back.
Yeah.
an offering. Please. I know it's
Please
garbage. Just take
this.
it.
But
I
at
mean,
the end of the day,
that's a TikTok right there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
At the end of the day, though, making anything, even if it's not good, is better than not making anything. Like a badly made TikTok is still better than no TikTok at all.
In the same vein, I would rather play like a badly prepped game of D&D than not play D&D. So just like, also, I only talked about TikTok, but what just Kurt said was like, yes, 100%. And also like, if you're a DM and you're out of inspiration, you don't fucking know what to do. One of the best things you can do is just like lob that to the players. Like, hey, this is a situation. And you figure, you find a story in here. This is your problem now. I'm tired. And they will. Players, every time, like, my players have made whole side quests of me just trying to get them from point A to point B. They can do it, like, they'll do it whether or not I ask. So.
I've DM'd an entire session in Curse of Strahd, 3.5 hours, where they just sat at a table and played a card game I made up. I threw important NPCs at them, and they just, fuck it, we're playing this card game.
As long as they're having fun, right?
I'm not mad about it. That's
Ultimately.
awesome.
I have more D&D advice.
Okay.
Okay. This is more real advice. Like, you're out of inspiration. What do you do? This is me. Like, you're not out of inspiration because you're a husk of a person. You're out of inspiration because you just like don't have ideas that day, but still have energy. Okay. Because I feel like these are two different. Anyway, go through. Go through the Fey creatures flavor text.
There's some good shit in there.
The flavor text on these, like, y'all been sleeping on mites. This is a preview, so I'm gonna make it up a TikTok about
I
this.
just used the mites the other day.
Mites are so cool. Mites are so cool. And like, they have this whole thing where they like infest a dungeon and then they make this like animosity grow and people start getting angry. And the way they reproduce is by like making you angry enough that you sleepwalk and dig a hole and scream into the hole in anger and bury it. And under the next full moon, a mite is born from the scream hole you made. Like, this is the best shit ever. I'm like, that's a story. The best monsters come with their own plot hooks.
Right.
So just go read that. Just ignore. I don't
Well
read
done.
any modules.
Yeah,
I don't have energy. Just read
Just
that.
read the monster manual. Cover
Just
to
read the
cover.
monsters. That's where all the good shit is.
You can get a whole lot of stuff in flavor text. That's completely fair.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to chase on what Kurt said, just because I feel we promoted this a little bit, so there's probably some TikToky crew in the thing. As far as TikTok goes, she's a cruel mistress. She really is. If you take a day off for mental health, your algorithm will reflect that. But so that being said, if you post more than 1 or 2 videos a day, it'll reflect that too. So saving drafts and posting those later has been a big thing. For me, it's been more about chasing the serotonin than trying to chase the views. I post the things that I want to post, and hey, if people like it, they like it, and then it doesn't feel like I'm actively just with the exception of my dice vomit video trying to get to 40K, it doesn't feel like I'm working for it, I guess. Do the stuff that you want to do and the views will come as long as you're consistent.
Eventually.
All right, guys.
Eventually.
Next question. Favorite game night snacks? Operator, since you're talking.
Oh my God, I miss my home games so much. So back in the day, we played that Pathfinder game for about 2 or 3 years, and we called it Dinner and a Dungeon because we would have one big meal and everybody else we do a potluck, and it was just absolutely phenomenal. We did themed nights for it. The last Call of Cthulhu game we played, it was based on, so really quick because I just love the story. I told all my players, make somebody that's really rich and famous, whatever the backstory is, just base it in the 1920s. You're going on a cruise. And then I told them that they were on the Titanic. And the menu for that night
Right.
was based on the last meal served on the Titanic the night it sank. And it was just
That's so cool.
I have to piggyback off of this and just tell a completely unrelated anecdote. Somebody saw that video that you did, stitched it, tagged me in it because they thought I looked like the captain of the Titanic.
I have a picture of him. I have all my
Right.
handouts from that. It's close. It's close.
Yeah. It's so he thought I was the captain. Like he tagged me. He did a whole video on it. He's like, he looks at the picture because he held up had it in the background on a green screen. He's like, Blind GM, is that you?
I remember that.
So I went on this whole tangent about how I was definitely not an eldritch being, and I was definitely not also the captain of the Titanic.
I will say, personally, my favorite thing to snack on as I'm playing, quesadillas, because I can just pick them up, I can eat it, nothing sticks to my fingers. It's perfect.
Anyone else want to jump in on the favorite gaming snacks?
Fried pickles from the 5-8 Club.
That sounds great.
Fried pickles.
There's a little
now I miss
restaurant that's right by
Zaxby's.
me. There's a little restaurant right by me. Like, I've had fried pickles from a lot of different places, but this place has really good fried pickles, and they serve it with sounds weird. It is a marshmallow ranch sauce. They use marshmallow to make it really, really light and fluffy, but it doesn't actually affect the ranch flavor.
Okay.
What?
It is. I know. I was very skeptical when I tried this stuff.
Marshmallow pickles?
It was marshmallow ranch dip with fried pickles. It is. There's no reason for it to be good, but it is good.
Wow. All right, let's get to a regular question. How's that sound? Our next one up that we have, because I mean, the snacks doesn't really help anybody, but people were curious, so figured we'd ask it.
I can't eat while I DM. I talk too much. I'll just choke and die.
Oh my God, the nearest Zaxby's is in Utah. Fuck my life. You said, I'm sorry, you said fried pickles, and there's Canadian adjacent. They have cheese curds and
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, so I think this one applies fairly well to you guys because you all have done homebrew stuff, and I know some probably more than others, but the question is, what do I need to do to be able to homebrew items, classes, etc., and keep them balanced?
Balanced.
That's the key.
Well, we know where no man lands.
Kurt, let's start with you again.
Yeah, I would agree with that laugh. I think balance in general is an illusion. That is largely the DM adjusting things on the fly as you need to, whether that be a monster suddenly having more or fewer hit points to account for a certain encounter, whether there are more monsters that are added to the encounter, or whether you just have to at the end of the day say, hey, that item I gave you, I was wrong. I'm sorry about that, and we need to adjust it. Like, don't underestimate the power of just admitting when you were wrong or messed up about something. At the same time, I think like I would tread lightly on like, here's a really cool thing. No, give me that cool thing right back.
Just kidding.
So I would go more on like, if you give them a cool thing that is slightly overpowered, just everything is a little stronger that they face from now on. But I do think like if you're looking at it more practically, I think looking at the items and the specifically like if you're looking at a subclass, looking at the subclasses that are already available for that class, they normally follow some kind of like a pattern or a, you know, like most barbarian subclasses at level 3 you gain something cool for your rage. At the same, like the next, I don't know it off the top of my head, but like the next time you gain something cool, it's usually like defense or mobility based, then it's something else for your rage. I think like looking at what's available and being like, okay, that's the framework I have to like what types of abilities or powers they're going to gain. Now what thematically works for the subclass that I want to make that is different from the rest of them.
Nick, can I chase this with another
Yeah.
question? Just because of the group that we have here, I have to know to the rest of the cast, what's your favorite? What's your coolest magic item that you've just made up for your players? I have to know.
Ethically sourced Blink Dog cloak.
What?
We created so we had a barbarian that was having a real hard time getting from one side of the battlefield to the other side of the battlefield. So he wanted access to Misty Step, but there isn't really a magic item that gives Misty Step. So the DM, our friend Brian, who's in a couple of Nick's streams and a couple of mine, was like, Adam, can you come up with something? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, come up with like a, I don't know, like a Blink Dog cloak or something like that. I'm like, yeah, but Blink Dogs are like, we don't want to kill the doggos. Like they're doggos. They're so adorable. And I'm like, all right, so we're gonna call it the ethically sourced Blink Dog cloak. And so basically they were Blink dogs that when they died of old age, they donated their bodies to the magic item industry such that their skins could then be turned into a Blink Dog cloak, which would give the barbarian Misty Step 3 times a day.
As someone
My
who's had to
favorite
like
by
brush a husky, I feel like you could definitely make a whole cloak just out of like the fur,
fur, yeah.
that they shed.
Yes.
Oh, is it a blink dog?
There we go. Look, he just appeared out of nowhere.
Hi, honey. Hi, sweet pea.
Hello.
It's like we
I heard someone say dog. Hello.
Hi, meet Layla.
and blink right into view. See, that's
You
a
want a
TikTok
snack?
right there.
You want a
Gush about
snack?
that
Let's
all
go
day,
get a
but yes.
snack. I'll be
That's my
right
favorite.
back. I need to get a snack.
Yep.
I just want to jump on to something that TD Pod said in chat
Yes.
about what Kurt was saying, which is about balancing things narratively. So that's what I do a lot because, again, I'm not good at balancing. Also, by the way, like if an entire team of writers at Wizards of the Coast can't make a well-balanced game half the time, then you certainly as a person just doing their best on their free time can't do it either. It's okay, just do your best. But like, but one thing you can do is balance things narratively. So for example, you gave them a sword that is super, it's like you're like, ah shit, I thought it was gonna be cool, but like it's way too powerful. But maybe every time they go anywhere and anyone sees this sword, people know how powerful it is, and it becomes like people start targeting them. People are trying to steal it from them. People like, you know, you can do other things to make this more costly to possess, to own, to like also my things is like you can balance pretty much any encounter by making the adversaries smarter. Like you can pretty much balance anything on the fly by doing that. Mechanics are hard. So instead I'll be like, hey, these bandits, these ones have a strategy. They, you know, these ones planned it out and they're targeting your casters. So figure it
After
out.
the guy with the Holy Avenger. That's
Yeah.
the thing that's happening now.
All right, Adam. I think I know your answer because we know each other, and we're in the same groups.
We are in the same groups. This started years ago. At one point, one of our group of friends up here in the Frosty North, put together a group of all of our friends that GM. And every single time one of us has a question about balance, about something that we're homebrewing, about something that we're making, we'll post it in the chat. And whoever's available, whoever's got the spoons, whoever's got whatever, will look at what we've got and just give us feedback. And this can be applied, like, even if you don't have other friends who GM. I mean, there are fairly large Discord communities out there, and also smaller but still robust Discord communities out there that you can go in and that people will happily, like, there's people who are bored at work all fucking day and all they want to do is read about your homebrew item. And I'm not even being sarcastic. Like, there are desk jockeys who would kill to do literally anything other than what they're doing right then. So finding a smaller but robust Discord community. I have one. I know Nick has one. I'm certain other cast members here have one. And just saying, hey, I have this idea for homebrew, but I need help with some balance ideas. Can you help me with this? And then just putting it out there. It's very helpful. Like with my friends, it's nice because nobody tends to be a dick any more than I expect them to be. It's yeah, so it's very helpful.
Or alternative strategy, just say, I've made this, it's perfect. Make a TikTok about it and then get corrected by 300
Yes,
people,
there
and
you
that's
go.
more feedback than you could ever need.
That's a genius idea.
Also be prepared to be called stupid a lot if you do that.
To throw off of Adam's thing, and I'm just going to say an example. Here's a perfect example. Adam has an idea. I have this idea for a spell. This is the idea for the spell. Here it is. One person responds. Here's feedback. Another person responds. Here's feedback. Third person responds. This is already a spell. Here's the link.
Yep.
Also,
That fully happened today, by the way.
just from a more like mechanical, practical perspective of balancing too, so much of it is reskinning, which is basically just taking something that already exists, maybe a monster that has an assigned challenge rating, and like what I like to do is I'll take like 3 CR4 monsters and I'll take the bits of different ones I like and kind of just smush them and then add a little spice on top, and I'm like, I make this for you.
So you have 3 CR4 monsters in a trench coat. That's what I'm hearing.
So that's 100% a thing. I've done like a little one shot where they went to a tavern and they ate some stuff and it shrank them down. So now they're
Oh my
teeny
God.
tiny little people in a giant like bedroom trying to figure out how to get back up onto this table to like do the drink bee to come back big again. And I just changed the name of bear on the stat block to mouse.
Oh,
I removed the breath weapon,
Oh my
turned a red
God.
dragon into a cat.
That's amazing.
oh, I love
Nice.
Okay, so I was reading about this recently. I don't know if anybody has seen the Dimension 20 Escape from Bloodkeep, but it is a play on the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but from the bad guy's perspective. And Brendan Lee Mulligan made Samwise Gamgee a playable character, or one of the good guys, but it was the foe, the antagonist to the party. But he basically just reskinned a storm giant
Hell yeah.
and made it Samwise Gamgee and gave him a frying pan, and that's what he fought with.
That's
And
amazing.
so Matt Mercer sitting there like fucking fighting this storm giant, but it's a fucking hobbit. Like he's just getting his ass kicked because it's a fucking
Yeah.
storm giant.
And that's important. Like you don't have to create this stuff from scratch. 90% of the work has already been done for you.
Right.
Alternatively, if you are, so I'm writing like a bestiary right now, and I make a lot of like homebrew monsters that I want to be able to publish and share with other people. But the problem is I make up my own mechanics, so they aren't balanced. They don't have, because like they can't be balanced because they don't exist in the game. So like you kind of just have to let go a little bit and be like, this like, and then just you remember that banshees are CR4 and can TPK a level 10 party.
CR1 half shadows, same.
Will-o-wisps perma-killed more of my party than they care to admit. Like it's situational. So these are guidelines. Balance is a guideline, but bad decisions and bad rolls can undermine balance every single time.
Right. For sure. All right, another chat question. What is your preferred method of organizing your information for a session or campaign? Do you place more value in high detail or the ability to quickly find and put to use things? Kurt.
My secret is I don't.
Okay.
No, so I that's honestly my biggest weakness probably as a DM is organization. My notebook, there are different notes for different sessions in each one of the 3 subjects of this notebook that I will flip back and forth between to find whatever I need. I'm like, I know I have that NPC's name written down somewhere. Let me just find it. So I don't do any of the things that I do is my advice for that. I know a lot of times, like when I'm prepping, I will definitely favor more the flexibility. Like I will jot down, like normally have a Google form for when I'm like when I actually need to organize things. I'll have a Google form and just sort of our Google Doc. And I have all my notes written in there. I tend to do more of like here are 3 possible encounters that depending on where they go from where they're at, they may or may not face. Here are a couple of, exploration challenges or some environmental things that I can throw at them if they really go off path. So yeah, I tend to be more on I will set things up and have them prepared on the sidelines, and then wherever the story goes for that particular session, I will slide in the bits and pieces that I need.
Operator.
Ooh, I'm so I spent a stupid amount of money on the official D&D like monster cards until I realized I could just put this information on index cards. And that's what I do now. So I've got a huge stack of index cards that have stats for monsters, that have like, hey, there's this really cool magical item that I wrote all the information on, and I just keep that stack. I go through and okay, so in this cave there are these monsters, and I pull those index cards and I set them aside. I also do, because I do a lot of voices, and it's really hard to do notes for voices. So when I do an NPC, I'll write little notes about how they sound, what type of accent they use.
What kind of notes do you do?
More.
Like, how do you know the voice? Sorry, I have a strategy for this. I really want to know what you do.
So it's very personal. Like
Oh, sorry, you don't have to tell me.
No,
If
no,
it's
in
like,
in that it's going to be different for every person.
Oh, I think like it's personal, like it's traumatic or something. I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't-
so I would appreciate it if you stopped. No.
Sorry.
Like I rate their pitch from 1 to 10, where the voice is from the front or back of my throat from 1 to 10, so on and so forth. So I can see exactly where the sound is coming from in my mouth. Which is, like I said, it's very personal. My notes are not going to make sense to anybody else, but it's personal to me. I also have a lot of characters like Biggs and Wedge that I can just throw in. If you've ever played Pokemon, you got a Nurse Joy and an Officer Jenny in every single town. Biggs
Okay.
and Wedge are my town's guard in every single town, and they always speak the same.
I haven't. Someone asked way earlier in the chat, like your favorite NPC that you've created.
Mhm.
But one of mine is an NPC named Powerful Daniel, who exists in every universe I create and has the voice of Ash Ketchum.
I need to hear it. I need to hear it now.
Yep.
All right. Hey guys, let's go hang out. Are we going on an adventure? Oh, cool. Can I come?
Tarrasque.
Whoa, that dog goes really fast.
All the time.
But I love that so much.
He can be in your world too. He can be in every world.
He's like now the psychopomp of my world. Like he's
A
the one who guides
multiverse.
people to death. So you get to the Grim Reaper and it's just him and the fairy being like,
Hey, what's going on? How's Diane going for you? It's okay. I got room in my backpack.
Yeah, Biggs and Wedge, they always talk about it like this. They're like the narrator to an episode of Dukes of Hazzard. And outside of
them dude boys.
if I need a random merchant for them to sell things to, I use Grift. Grift has all the things you need. And like his cart is a mimic that he's tamed. So instead of like the wheels rolling, it actually like walks. And he knows way more than he should. So there's like some questions there, but it also gives me like just an excuse to, hey, you need to dump some loot. Here's a guy that will buy it.
No questions asked.
No questions asked. They just assume he's some like demi being eldritch horror.
I have so many of those.
He might be.
They're like,
He might be.
Adam, notes, prep abilities, skills for prepping.
So
Note-taking.
I'm kind of I'm a special case here. A slightly special case. I am a legally blind human being. If I take notes, first and foremost, they have to be I can't do handwritten notes anymore. I just can't. So they have to be digital. I use Google Documents pretty prolifically. I use D&D Beyond very prolifically. I mean, even if I'm reskinning something, I'll even just pull up the monster stats on D&D Beyond and then just, make up the homebrew or the reskin on the fly. And I like to think that I'm the kind of DM that doesn't do copious amounts of like prep and note taking, but my particular brand of ADHD causes me to hyperfixate on this sort of thing. So I go into very detailed notes. Every single bad guy in my game has this long, detailed backstory as to why they are the way they are and why precisely it is they're trying to fuck with the party. Most of which never ever sees the light of day. But that's how I process and how I kind of raise some of the emotional stakes for my characters. So I usually have copious amounts of notes, but in terms of actual like plot points, I use bullets.
Mhm.
Like I just need to hit this beat, this beat, this beat, and this beat, and it's good. But it's where I really get into the weeds is the monsters and the bad guys that I'm putting into the thing. And this isn't advice so much as just how I approach this.
Yeah.
How to do it, how you want to make a game, to give the advice. There is no one way and there's no wrong way. The only wrong way is if nobody has fun, including you.
Welcome to Epic Realms
kind of
presents the Gamemasters.
for most GMs, I think it just takes time to kind of figure out what works best for you, and it will evolve. I am not the same GM that I was 20 years ago when I started playing. I'm not the same GM that I was 15 years ago when Nick yelled at me. I'm not the same GM that I was a year ago. You evolve and change as you get older and as you learn more about how the world works and how you navigate storytelling.
Right.
So
for people that are in the chat and are listening to the show, just so you know, and I posted it in the chat, but I want to say it out loud. If you've asked questions and we didn't get to them tonight, or we don't get to them tonight, they get saved for future episodes of the Gamemasters Workshop. It's the last Saturday of every month, so you can pretty much count on that if something comes up and we have to rearrange. Last week it wasn't exactly the last episode of every month because Robert Hartley is in New Zealand, Chris Hislop was in England, and Eric Scott DeBee was in Washington. So sometimes we have to arrange for schedules. So
He was
obviously,
in old England, if you would.
yes, old England. That's right. So so keep in mind we will have them. They're usually, but most often, the last Saturday of every month. We will save your questions and they will get used on a future episode. The next guests are still up in the air. Those are still being scheduled for that episode. So, but that will be the last. That will be let me see here. August, we're going to be looking at the 27th for the next episode. So there you go, right? I got to look up at the thing there. So, guys, thank you all for coming. I want to take this time to let you guys promote all of your stuff, all of the things you are doing. Kurt, let's start with you. I know you're crunched for time and you're gonna have to head out here in a bit. So give me the F11, 411. Give me the 4F5, whatever it is. Tell me your stuff and let us know where you're going.
Yeah. First off, thank you. This has been so much fun. I've had a blast tonight. It's been so. Thank you very much for having us all on. You can find me personally on TikTok and other social medias. Everything is at Mr. Kurtwise. If you're interested in watching me play or DM, I DM on the 5% Chance Twitch channel. They're actually live right now. I think it's Brill from Dubstat running a game. But I DM there every other Tuesday night on the Diceberg game. I also am playing in a game. It's going to be restarting up Tuesday afternoons from EN Publishing called the Star-Crossed Seaways. And if anyone in our audience will be at Gen Con, I'm playing in a one-shot with some other TikTok folks at Gen Con on Friday.
Awesome.
I think if you are literally like if you type into the Gen Con search TikTok, the game pops right up.
So it does, because I typed in TikTok and I bought tickets to go see you.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll be there, but I think I'm working at a booth. But I definitely want to come say hi to. I want to say hi to all of you that are going to be at Gen Con. So I will be there, and I'll come up and say hello. And tell us about yourself. Tell us about all of your stuff. You've got a lot of stuff you do. A lot of stuff. A lot.
I'm so tired.
So tell us about it.
Yes. Hi. So over on my channel, which is gnome_Ann, I run a campaign called Be Gay, Do Crime, in which a rotating cast of queer streamers are sent on various missions for the Alphabet Mafia to further the agenda through illegal means. And I've been running this as a series of one-shots forever that are all canon and all equally absurd. And this is the long campaign is starting next month. It'll still have a partially rotating cast, though. It's really fun. So yeah, come hang out, Be Gay, Do Crime with me. In addition to that, I'm also about to publish my first 5e supplement, which I'm very excited about. It is the Fur Bestiary, and it's a bestiary, and all the monsters are based off Furbies. And they're all perfect and wonderful and beautiful boys. And they're all incredibly good. And I was working with Scarlett on that, who is the illustrator, who's on Dark Dominion on 5% right now. So yarn board. And the other thing I'm adding is that, so yeah, follow that, because I'm going to tell, well, honestly, once I publish that, I'll never shut up about it. Like, I'll never talk about anything else. So don't worry about missing that. The other thing is that I have a Ko-fi where I do map making specifically. So like if you want to subscribe for like lots of encounter maps, but I just put up there is a pay what you want, a guide and templates to game prepping that has like all the prompts you need to set up for game prepping, including things like setting, characters, pacing, and includes roll tables if you don't know and you just want to randomly generate it, because sometimes it do be like that. So yeah, that's a resource that exists on my Ko-fi, which is also gnome_Ann.
Awesome. Operator.
Why do I have to follow that? Oh dear.
Because I asked you. Just say something silly. Say something like F11 and you'll be good. Everybody will laugh.
F11. So, hi guys. Hello Operator on the TikToks. I recently started streaming, but because Hello Operator is apparently super, I had to spell it stupid funny. So it's like hello_0 Parator. It's easier just to find me on TikTok. I have a link there. But I'm going to Gen Con too, hopefully to kind of like rub elbows with some of these honestly amazing creators like Kurt and Adam. The GUI Cube guys are going to be there. I co-authored one of their books. They actually have me and like Blue with a mohawk in one of their books. So I have something to sign other than just Cinnabon receipts. It's going to be really awesome. Yeah, thank you guys so much. I've been trying to keep the imposter syndrome down, standing upon the shoulders of these giants around me. Thank you for having me, Nick. I appreciate it.
Very much welcome. Adam.
Oh God. I'm the blind GM on TikTok, on Insta, on Twitter, not on Twitch, because I started the Twitch channel before I had the blind GM brand. On Twitch, it is Almighty Ursus, ALMIGHTYB. Fuck, that's my email. ALMIGHTYURSUS. And I do gaming streams. I'm frequently on Nick's streams. I I don't know. I do a bunch of stuff. I do DM exclusively word of mouth, but I do DM professionally. So if you want to hire me, I'm there for you.
There you go. Awesome, awesome. So, thank you all for joining us tonight. We're going to do a raid. It's so hard to decide because you've all mentioned so many awesome people. So we're going to go with the 5% chance that Kurt mentioned because, well, they aren't going to expect it and it'll be fun. So that's the plan.
Never expect.
Never expect. And I made sure to give you guys all the shout outs that you need. So everybody go and follow them. If you're on TikTok, go and follow all of these awesome content creators there. Follow them on all of their social media. If they're on Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, wherever they are, go and follow them and help them out wherever they can. And thank you all for joining us tonight. I do also want to say, before we get going, we host a podcast. The podcast is every other Monday live. It drops on Tuesday. So let me tell you about it. August 8th, one of the most well-known D&D authors ever. He created Dristuorden, Catti-brie, Bruno, Artemis Intrari, Jaraxel, and more. He is the guest of honor at Gen Con. R.A. Salvatore is going to be joining us on the podcast August 8th. August 22nd, Darkseid himself. From Zack Snyder's Justice League movie, actor, narrator, performer Ray Porter is going to be joining us. He has a plethora of audiobooks and voice work credits he has done, and he's going to come and join us and talk all about it on August 22nd. September 5th, award-winning author Tim Pratt. His contributions to science fiction and fantasy is well known, including some of my most favorite Pathfinder Tales novels. Tim Pratt's going to be joining us September 5th. So guys, make sure to join us for the podcast. Go and look up Epic Realms Podcast wherever you can. Join us for the Gamemasters Workshop 1 month from now. Follow all these awesome content creators and enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you guys at Gen Con. All right? Have a great time. Thank you all. Goodbye, everybody, and take care.
Have fun.